Hi everyone, good evening.
Hi, Bhaskar. Good evening.
Very good evening. Yeah, so in the last session, we just started talking about Azure SQL Server. So we have seen what are the different types of purchasing models, like we have seen a DTOs based purchasing model, and we have come across the vCore purchasing model. So in each and every purchasing model, again, we have a three pricing tiers here. It depends on the requirement. The SQL Server administrators or Azure administrators are going to set up the environment for us. But as a data engineer, we are going to connect to them and we are going to collect the data from that particular place. So how we can read the data from SQL servers using Data Factory, we need to know it. And how we can read the data from there by using Azure Databricks is important for us. Now, in order to do all this kind of project activities, then we need to set up the environment for us. So let me show you how I'm going to show it. Just observe. If I wanted to create a SQL server, I'm just going to use the Azure SQL, or you can search here Azure SQL. Let's hit on it. Hit on plus create. When I'm trying to create a Azure SQL server, it is supporting three deployment options. One is SQL databases, SQL managed instance, and SQL virtual machines. Okay, so we are going to do with the SQL server, SQL databases. We're going to take it. So if you wanted to bring your on-prem SQL server into the cloud by lift and shift, then you can use this particular option. Okay, so we are not going to set up all this stuff. We don't need to know about it, and do not even do the practice with the SQL managed instance. It is just going to be a little more cost. At the same time, it takes more 8 hours to set up it. Okay, so do not go for this. Use only SQL databases for our practice. Now I'm just selecting hit on create. Once I hit on create, I'm just going to take the resource group. So resource group I've taken. Okay, let's take separate resource group. So after this session, I'm just going to take out this. I'm just going to say the name of the resource group is testing RG. In order to take the service, we required subscription and we required resource group. The resource group I'm just giving here. Once this session is completed, then I'm going to remove this entire resource group. So what happens is it is going to reduce the cost. If you're not using it, then you just take out take out them. And a database name is required in order to create it. A database name, you can give any name in this particular place. And we are going to have a server. Inside the server, we will be having a databases, something like this. Okay, so server is required. At the same time, what is the name of the database that you need to specify? So I wanted to say the name of the database is source is my database name. Let's create a SQL server. I wanted to create a new SQL server for us. Let me hit on create new. And this is also going to be one-time job. You're not going to do again and again. So I'm just going to say Bhaskar SQL test. I'm just giving some name. I'm just trying to give the location. I wanted to take India, Central India. So nearest location, I'm just taking it. How can you say that is a Azure SQL databases when you connect to Azure SQL server, or when you see the name of the server, you can feel that is a Azure SQL server. You can feel that. So server name dot database dot windows dot net. Server name dot database dot windows dot net represents your Azure SQL server. Okay, so if it is normal SQL server, you will be having just server name. Okay, so when you go for here, then you will be having the server name dot database dot windows dot net. The location I'm taking, wherever I'm going to store, the same location I'm taking for my server. and just say hit on OK. Before that, you need to set up the login details also. That means if I wanted to log into this particular server, if I wanted to log in, you need to have a login details. So minimum one administrator is required for the server. Of course, you will be having multiple administrators for the same server, and databases will be handled by them. Now, if I wanted to connect to this particular server to see what is there inside the database, or if you wanted to read the data from the database, then you required authentication method. I have a Microsoft Entra only authentication. I have a both SQL and Microsoft Entra authentication, and I have a SQL authentication. Okay, so in real time, I used Microsoft Entra as well as even SQL authentication also. So here I'm going to take the SQL authentication. Let me set up it. Just select it one. And what is the name of the administrator you have to specify? The administrator, I'm just taking my name, Bhaskar, and just provide the password to connect to your server and confirm your password. And this setup will be done by administrators. We are not going to do it. But if you want to practice with Azure Data Factory, you have to set up your database by yourself. So that is how it is going to be there. Now let me hit on OK. Now server name came to here. I'm just selecting development. I told you, if you remember, we talked about DTUs. So DTUs are going to represent, or DTUs going to be measured with the help of compute and storage. So compute and storage, you need to choose it. How much compute is required, how much storage is required, you have to specify. I'm just going to hit on configure database. So since I'm having a paid version, I'm having a feasibilities to use. Now you can see a DTUs based purchasing model and vCore based purchasing model. So I have a basic here. The basic is for less demanding workloads. And I have a standard for budget friendly. And I have a premium for production activities. In my previous project, we used standard for testing and development, and premium we used for production. Okay, so all depends on the requirement we are going to take it. So we are not a decision makers what kind of purchasing model or pricing tier we require. That will be taken care by someone else in the project. Now I'm just going to take the basic for our practice. While you are doing the practice, just take only a basic. So monthly price, you are going to get approximately 465 per month. It is an estimated cost. It may go little down or it may go little up also. So both will be there. And DTUs means database transfer units. How many database transfer units are there? 5 is there. So one database unit is 93.18 multiplied by 5 is this price. Maximum 2 GB you can store and maximum 5 DTUs are there. We have only 5 DTUs. 5 DTUs plus up to 2 GB. So this is a fixed bundle. The basic comes with the fixed bundles. Fixed bundle of resources. Okay, so if you want to increase the compute to improve the performance, you cannot increase the compute. And you cannot decrease also. So minimum 2 is there. And redundancy we talked about in the last session. The redundancy concept is common for both file system or database, because you are going to store the data in the varieties of the locations. We have seen LRS, locally redundant storage, zone redundant storage, and geo redundant storage. And these 3 storages are there. And geo zone redundant storage also is there. You can see geo zone redundant backup storage. All this for backups. All these are for backup. Now I'm just going to take only locally redundant. And one more thing is, since I'm having a paid subscription, I'm able to save. But when you go for when you have a free trial, then all these options, most of the options will be disabled for you. And if you take a budget friendly, you can see how exactly it is going to be there here, budget friendly. Now I have a flexibility to increase the number of DTs. The minimum number of DTUs is 10. You cannot reduce less than 10. You have to keep up to 10 only. The cost you can see here, minimum minimum 10 DTUs and 2 GB. If I take it, the same standard, if I take, then the price is 1400 change. So because 10 DTUs are there, 1 DTU cost is 140. Okay, so the compute and configuration was changed here. Now, if I wanted to increase this compute, you can see one more thing here is it is S0. S0 means up to 10 DTUs is your S0. Now I'm just going to increase this number of DTUs to 20 DTUs. So 20 DTUs are there. That is S1. That is 20 DTUs. And observe here, still 10, not this one, sorry. And S2 is the 50 DTUs. And next is S4 will be there if I'm correct. No, S3 is there. S3 is 100 DTUs. And S4 is going to be 200 DTUs. Now you can see. So in my experience, I went up to next level, that is S6. That is, we're having 400 DTUs. Okay, so only in one situation, I went for maximum DTUs because I wanted to run the job within the same day and I need to test it because other team is waiting or other team is dependent on my team. So we went for increasing up to 1024 DTUs so that we can finish that particular job in an hour. Otherwise, if I have a 400 DTUs, even it is used to take 4 hours to run it. But if I go with maximum size, then I used to finish it in an hour. Okay, so because we are having an early job, so we used to do it in that way. So whenever you wanted to do some testing and if you wanted to make it faster to do testing or development, then for development, we don't need this much configuration because you're not going to handle all the data. But when you go for testing, then you require, once your day is done, let's say after 6 p.m., no one is using this particular server. Okay, so then in that case, you can bring that back to 10 DTUs. You can bring that to 10 DTUs so that the price is going to be reduced. Now it is having 56,000 change. 041 is there. Now, if I wanted to bring it back to 10 DTUs, what happens is the cost is going to be changed. So tomorrow morning, once the day started, once you're going to start working, then you can increase this. So because it is a budget friendly. So standard is a budget friendly where we can increase and decrease the budget depends on our business requirement. Only for testing point of view this is much more recommended. Any question guys as of now?
No. No.
Okay, perfect. Now I'm just going to change one more thing, that is the premium. Okay, so the price is completely changed. You can see there is a more and more options you're going to have in this particular place. Okay, so we don't need to go for that. The maximum DTUs is 4,000 DTUs you can go. If it is a standard, the maximum is only 3,000. Maximum is 3,000. If I need more than that, then you have to go for ultimately, that is for only production, you're going to take it. So in this place, we are using 1,000 DTUs for production with the premium. And this size is, we are taking 250 GB. Okay, so depends on the requirement, they're going to do it. So if increase the compute, then price will be increased. And if you increase or decrease the DTUs also, the price will be decreased. Okay, so for practicing, I always recommend take only basic, do not take others. Just hit on apply. And then I wanted to create it, right? Let me go for next. So in the next, you have to set up this connectivity. Let's say, for example, you're having a server here and the cloud is there, right? Now you're sitting in your laptop, in front of your laptop. If I wanted to connect it, then you have to whitelist your IP address. Whitelist IP address. Okay, so who is going to whitelist your IP address is going to be taken care by network administrators. You don't need to worry about it. Okay, so in this particular case, since it is a public endpoint, since we are going to work with the public endpoint, I'm just going to add my current IP address. Whatever the IP address is there for my network, that IP address will be added into this database so that it is going to allow you to connect it. So in real time, private endpoint will be used. So this will be taken care by administrators of your system. I mean, this is SQL Server and network administrators will take care about it. And we need to add your IP address by taking this public endpoint. Allow Azure, two options are there here. Just try to observe. This is also important for practicing purpose. No one will ask you in the interview. Allow Azure services and resources to access this server. Let's say I have a database here. I wanted to access this one. To access it, what you have to do is your ADF has to connect to this particular place. To connect it, you have to allow it. Allow Azure Data Factory to connect your database, or allow Azure Databricks to connect your database. Okay, so any service that you're going to use, just hit on yes, then only it is going to allow you to go inside the SQL server. Otherwise, you cannot connect it. So these steps will be taken care the people who are going to set up the SQL server. And how we are going to whitelist your IP addresses, you have to add your current IP address. You have to switch on here also. Let's switch on. So once you have done this too, then you just go for review plus create. No need to go for other options, you just leave them. As a data engineer, we don't need to care about all those things. For Azure Data Factory, how we can set up our environment for practicing, that I'm just going to take you through. Let's hit on review plus create and hit on create. Let it create. Now it got done. So once it is done, just hit on go to resource. Now your server is up and running. I mean to say your SQL Server database is ready to use. This is the name of the server and which is located in this location. Under resource group is this one. Okay, so some details are available. What is the pricing tier? So all these details is provided. Now, if I wanted to connect to this particular server, then you need to use the SQL Server Management Studio. Okay, so you need to install SQL Server Management Studio in your system. How you can do is, I'll just show you, but you can try from your side. SQL Server Management Studio. It's a free of cost. You can just download and install it. There is an option download, hit on it. You can find. Here is the one. Download it. Once you download, then just install it. It's not going to take much time. Just one or two clicks away to set up the installation. So once you have done this, then you're going to open SQL Server Management Studio. Something like this, SQL Server Management Studio. Just hit on it. So when you use this SQL Server Management Studio to communicate with your database, then to connect it, we have to provide the connection details here. Everyone is going to use in our experience when you work with the Azure or data engineer, 100% is we are going to touch this at the time of working. So server type we have to provide. The server type is database engine and server name, whatever the server name it is, if it is an on-prem, just provide the on-prem server. And if it is a cloud, then provide the cloud server. So I just wanted to provide the cloud server here. Just observe. My server is available here. You can just see it. Just take a copy of this and go to your SQL Server Management Studio and paste it here. Now my server name is pasted. And then what type of authentication? While setting up your SQL server, we used SQL authentication. And then provide the username, whatever the username you're having, or whatever the credentials they provided, you have to use those credentials to connect it. And let me hit on connect. Now you can see here. Now I have a SQL server and database name is source. There are very limited options when you compare with on-prem SQL server. Forget about at this point of time. You just have a look how exactly it is there. So source is the name of the database for your case. If I wanted to create any table, then I can use it. Just select the database name, hit on new query. So I'm just going to show you one sample query here. So if you want to know about the SQL, then you need to attend the SQL sessions with me. So it's a part of the course only. I used to take on weekends. So in the last weekend, I started talking about DDL, DML, and select statement also we started talking about it. So there you can get more clear details when you talk about the SQL. So select star from table name. Like I don't have anything, right? So you need to create a table. So table employee I'm taking. Employee number of type integer. employee name, varchar, and employee salary, money data type. So like this, you can create a table. We'll talk about what is this DDL at the time of SQL sessions. For now, I just wanted to say how we can connect to the database with the help of SQL Server Management Studio and how you can communicate with that. If you wanted to create a table, how can you create a table with the SSMS? Or if you wanted to pull the data from database, you have to prepare the SQL code. Okay, so if you wanted to make sure the code is correct or not, you have to write the code here, execute it. If the code is executable, then give it to the data factory or then give it to the Azure database. So depends on the requirement, you're going to keep it. Now I'm just going to say here, let's execute it. Now table is created. Select star from table name. Now you can see it. Okay, so how can we load the data into this table? How can we load the data into this table or how can you read the data from this table is by using Azure Data Factory we can load and by using Azure Data Factory we can read. So depends on the requirement you're going to do all your operations. Now, how we are going to do data processing, how we are going to read and load the data into the SQL Server. I told you there are two problems that we are talking from the beginning of the session. One is storage, another is processing. So these two problems only we are talking from the beginning of our sessions. So this is what the big data. The problems of these two, we are providing the solution with the Azure Data Engineering Services. We talked about the storage, ADLS is there and SQL Server is there. And now we need to talk about processing. So what is this processing? How you are going to do the data processing? So that I'm going to take you through. 1 minute. You can see this PPT, you can understand. So what I'm trying to do here, as I said in the demo or somewhere I talked about it, as a data engineer, you're going to do a data ingestion is one primary role that you're going to do it. And other primary role that you're going to do as a data engineer is data transformation. We are going to deal only these two operations. We are going to deal with the only these two operations only. Now, if your data source is something like your on-prem SQL server or any cloud systems, whatever it is. So I just wanted to say here, just observe what I'm trying to say. Here I have a databases. You may have a databases as a data sources. There may be a single database, there may be multiple databases. In my previous projects, we used more 20 different Oracle systems, Oracle databases. But in my current database, we are having, in my current project, we are having only single database. Okay, so all depends on the requirement. They're going to give the data from the varieties of the systems. And you can also have a documents, I mean to say files, a .csv files. They will not give the access directly to the database. They will give the access to the SFTP. In SFTP, they're going to keep the files. And from there, you have to read the data for further processing. So how we can read the data from the file system that we are going to see. And other places is even other cloud vendors or other cloud platform also is going to be source for your system, for your processing. You may take the data from Amazon or you may take the data from the GCP. Depends on your requirement, you can take the data from the other cloud platforms also. But I wanted to say all these things, I wanted to call it as a data sources. So wherever your business data is there, wherever you're having a business data, that systems we can call it as a data sources, underlying data sources. So that is the position, or that is the location of your data sources. So from there, we need to take the data to apply data transformations. Why we need to apply the transformation is we have to get, or the business wants to get some insights on top of this business data. On top of this data, they wanted to get the insights. They wanted to run some machine learning algorithms. Then we have to read the data. Someone has to give. Data scientists cannot read the data from here. They don't read it because this is completely raw data. Someone has to clean and give the data to the data scientist team, and someone has to clean this data and aggregate it and give it to the reporting team to visualize the data in the form of charts. So as a data engineer, we are responsible for giving the data to all the downstream systems. The people who are going to deal, or who are going to try to understand the business, for them, we need to give the data. So in order to process the data, in order to save the data for your business requirement, first you need to extract the data. So the extraction we are going to do. Without coding, or without, let's say without coding, in simple way, without coding, we can extract the data. If a data source is not a database, then you have to go for without coding. There is no option. But if your source is a database, then we are going to write the code. I'm sure about it. So do not think that we are going to work. ADF is a code-free ETL tool. Of course it is, but it doesn't mean that you are not going to write the SQL code. You are going to write the SQL code. So where and how you are going to write it, we can see. Okay, so believe me, even if you go and work at the time of working, you realize SQL also is getting used as part of the data engineering. So 100% is required. And if you don't give the answers in a SQL, then getting a job is also difficult. You have to, minimum basics are required. They don't expect you like a SQL developer. They will expect minimum things because you have to validate it. So who will validate the data? You have to do from your side, then you have to give it to the testing team. You cannot do it directly. We cannot directly give it to the testing team until unless you do some unit testing from your side. So for that reason, SQL is required. So who is going to extract the data? Your data factory is going to extract the data. Okay, so from the varieties of the systems we are extracting in the project also, we are going to talk about it. And then we are directly loading the data into Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 we are loading. So that means my target is Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2. I'm not applying any transformations here. Transformations I'm not applying. I'm just dumping it. You're just loading it without doing any transformation. So that is what the data ingestion. You're just ingesting the data. So data ingestion means it's a process of feeding the data without doing any transformation. Just dumping. So this is like a dump yard. You can just dump anything. So once you have the data here, then again, you are going to use the Azure Data Factory to extract the data from this layer. So the second phase is going to start it. So in everywhere, we are going to have two phases of the project. One is data ingestion, other is data transformation. So in the data transformations only, we are going to apply medallion architecture, bronze, silver, gold. And here it is a landing zone or raw container or raw layer that we used to call it. We can call that as a landing, or we can call it as a raw layer. Whatever the naming standard you want, you can give it. Unprocessed, processed, or something like this, you can give any naming standard for that. Now, this data transformation, when you go for the second stage, what it is doing, your data factory is extracting the data from the ADLS Gen 2. ADLS Gen 2. And then we are going to use the Azure Data Factory to apply the transformation. So Data Factory is having a capability. Data Factory is having a capability to apply the transformations. But market is not ready to use Azure Data Factory to apply the transformation. So 90% of the projects are going to use Databricks. Okay, so Databricks is important. 100% if it is Azure Data Engineer, they're going to use Azure Data Factory for data ingestion, Azure Databricks for transformation. To orchestrate this entire process, again, Data Factory, we are going to use it. Okay, but this Data Factory is having a capability to apply the transformation without code. No code is required to transform the data. But if you go for Databricks, 100% coding is required. But people are much more interested to write the transformations with the Databricks, not with the Data Factory, because this is not much flexible. So you can feel that when I'm going to take you through this data flow. So once you applied the required transformation, again, you're going to load the data into the target. You're going to load the data into the target, that is, again, ADLS Gen 2. So this is how the Data Factory is going to work as part of every data engineering projects. Is everyone clear? Any question as of now?
You said the the difference between the data factory and the Databricks. So the transformation steps that cannot be like.
Yeah. Basically, whatever data flow can do, the same thing can be done by Databricks also. Okay. But we are going to know more in detail about this Databricks at the time of Databricks sessions. Okay, so if I talk more here, you may get little different, but at this point of time, I say this is very faster than this ADF, I feel, based on my experience, I'm saying. And the doing development with this is going to take longer time, and doing the development here is going to be less time. But even it is a coding, that is easiest code. Okay, so less number of lines of the code you're going to do. That means you're going to use the Python here to transform the data. Okay, so but 90% of the market is going to use only Databricks style. You're not going to use the Azure Data Factory in order to do the transformation. But very 5% is even in my current project that was existed with the data flow. I'm just working on migrating it to the towards to Databricks. Because if there is any change request or if there is any data related issues, identifying and fixing and doing some change requests is going to time taking process. But when it comes to here, Databricks is much more easier. So when the moment we come to this Databricks, we can try to change. I mean to say, when I explain some use case with Data Factory, just imagine if you do the same thing with the Databricks, how much time it has taken. If I wanted to do some change here, how much time will take, and here how much time will take. You just cross verify by yourself. By the time you have to complete this Data Factory, and then when you come to the Databricks, then you can feel that. So how simple Databricks is. Okay, so in some places, Data Factory is important, especially data ingestion, because Databricks is not having much capabilities to ingest the data from the varieties of the systems. This is main built for doing a transformation, not for the data ingestion. So data ingestion, there are many tools are there. We have a Glue is there from the Amazon. We have a Scoop is there from traditional Hadoop ecosystems, and Azure Data Factory is there. So there may be other systems also to do the data ingestion because it is just dumping into the ADLS. So once the data is landed in the ADLS, then your Databricks can take care about it. The first part, this part will be done by ADF, and second part majorly in the real time, Databricks will be there. But since we are going to talk about the Data Factory, I wanted to concentrate on the Data Factory itself. Now I'm saying here, Data Factory is a cloud-based integration service. So Data Factory is having a capability to execute some other tasks also, some other platform related activities also. Let's say, for example, I have a SSIS project. Okay, so if I have a SSIS packages, if I wanted to run them in my ADF, I can run it. So ADF can give a feasibility to run your SSIS packages with Data Factory. In the same way, if you wanted to run the notebook, so notebook means it is a Databricks. Databricks is different and Data Factory is different. But still you can run your Databricks related stuff in the Databricks itself. And there is a HD Insights also, or Hive is there. Okay, so Python notebook, Python file also can run it. So there are many options are there. We can integrate other platforms also into the Data Factory. So because of that reason, I'm saying it is a cloud-based integration service, which is used to extract the data from the various data sources and transforms the data as per the business requirement. So what it is doing, it is extracting data from the various systems and applying a transformation. Based on the business requirement, we are going to apply it. The data is going to move between your source and target. So we can orchestrate the data between the source and target. So how we can prepare the orchestration of your data movement, that we are going to see with the help of Azure Data Factory only. So two operations we are going to do majorly in the real time with the Data Factory. One is data ingestion and other is data orchestration. Data orchestration. So this is about Azure Data Factory. Any question as of now?
One question I have one doubt.
Yeah.
So earlier in MSVA, we were using this package logics, right? So the same. What is the difference between SSIS and Azure Data Factory?
Okay.
So both do the same ETL jobs. What kind of difference?
Yeah. So basically, your Informatica is there, or data stage is there. In the same way, we have a SSIS also. All these are the traditional ETL tools. They will do the ETL processing. But these systems will not support for parallel processing. No parallel support, no parallel processing. And these systems will never support to process semi-structured data. Many limitations are there. So if it is not supporting for parallel processing, then usage of the systems gradually decreased. So because of this lack of parallel processing, Hadoop came into picture to process the data parallelly. Okay, so on top of that, we have it Azure Data Factory. So Azure Data Factory is going to run in the cloud, which is going to support for parallel processing. It reads the data parallelly from the source systems and loads the data into the target. And your source system, this underlying systems will not support for parallel processing. Because of that reason, we are ingesting the data. So after ingesting, we are doing the transformation. Because of that reason, we can say Azure Data Factory is a ELT tool, extraction, loading, transformation. You're doing a transformation after loading. After loading the data into ADLS Gen 2, you are applying the data transformations. Okay, so that is the main difference. It is not going to support for parallel processing, and it is having a very limited options in order to process the data, and it will not support for processing of many source systems. Very limited systems will be supported to pull the data. But when you go for Data Factory, we have around 100 different connectors we have subject to correction, but it is going to be approximately up to 100 different connectors. You can feel that, you can see that. So because of that reason, even market is much more interested to go for ADF for data ingestion. So once the data is ingested, then you can do transformation with any of the tools. You can use the Hadoop, or you can use the Databricks, or you can use any other tools also for doing a transformation. Okay. Any other question? So tomorrow I'm going to take you through how we can set up the Azure Data Factory and the introduction of the, I mean to say, the navigations of Data Factory. And the very important is building blocks of Data Factory. So this will be an interview question frequently. They don't ask you building blocks. They will give some use case and they will ask you, if I give this requirement, what is your approach to do this particular task? So that they're going to expect you. So in order to give the answer for that, then you should know about the building blocks of the data factory. So what are the different types of building blocks are there? And if you can understand when the moment to go, you can easily explain to the interviewers. Okay. So any question, guys, before stopping? So from tomorrow, please join by 6 p.m. Sorry, 7 p.m. so that we can start as early as possible. We can have 1 hour session. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, then. Thank you for joining. We'll see you tomorrow.
About